Today we begin our conversation about the fourth commandment, which is to honor your father and your mother. So the first table of the law is about our relationship with Him, to love Him above all things, or to love God with our whole heart, or our strength and our might, our whole being. And it begins with not having no other gods, not misusing God's name, and then remembering the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. This has all to do with our vertical relationship with God, and then we begin the second table of the law, which is our horizontal relationships, where we are told to love our neighbor as ourselves, or to love one another as Christ loved us. So it begins with honoring our parents. Honoring our parents means that we love them back. Just as we do with God, we love Him because He first loved us. And so we love our parents because they first loved us. They're the ones who brought us into the world. We honor them and we respect them even when we don't understand them, even when we don't agree with them. Even when they might annoy us, we still have to respect them. Why? Because as we're growing and as we're maturing as people, when we're becoming adults, we don't always understand because our experience is limited, and we may not understand all the reasons why our parents say and do what they say and do. Mark Twain said that when he was 16 years old, his dad was the dumbest person he knew. He said, "My old man was the dumbest person I knew." 6 years later, he was amazed at what his dad had learned. Now, I suspect that some of you may get the joke, but most of my confirmands over the last 20 years have never really gotten that joke. And the reason it's a joke is because who is the one who learned a lot when Mark Twain was 16 until his age 21? Who was the one who learned a lot, or 22? Well, it was Mark Twain. It was the child that learned and grew in their understanding. I remember feeling the same way about my parents. I remember thinking that my parents, both of them, just didn't get it. They didn't understand. They didn't understand the pressures I felt at school from my peers and from my teachers, from the culture, and they just seemed dumb to me, sadly, and I confess that. But I also remember going to college and leaving home and calling them every week. And as the years went by, they would share things with me, some wisdom, and I started to listen. I started to realize how much they loved me and cared for me and just wanted me to become all that God wanted me to become. But when I graduated college and started out to be truly on my own, earning my own income, having to pay rent for my apartment, buy food, get myself medical care, all of those things, my parents became super smart. I realized that how much work they put in to providing for my family growing up, how much they knew about paying bills and paying taxes and navigating this complex world the way that they did. But when I had my own children, they became geniuses. I realized how much wisdom they had gained over the years and how much they sacrificed having me as a child and 5 other children besides me, having to manage a very busy household, how to work so hard to provide for all of us. And I realized not only were they geniuses, their hearts were filled with great love for me, even before I understood it. When they disciplined me, they really wanted what was best for me. And so as I grew older, my honor and my respect and my love for my parents also grew. And so that's really what this commandment is about. It's about being a learner, learning to be a good child and a good person, and that your parents really want what's best for you. God disciplines those he loves, Scripture says. And so when our parents discipline us, they're not punishing us. They're not trying to harm us. They're trying to prevent us from further heartbreak or further harm or disappointment. They're trying to protect you. And so they may not want you hanging around certain people because they don't want you to run into danger with them. They may not want you to go to certain places because they care about you. It's not that they are trying to limit you or hold you back. They're actually trying to preserve your life. And so we realize our parents want what is best for us, even when we don't understand. Honoring our parents has no expiration date. As I said before, I grew in my love and my honoring of my parents. Was I perfect? No. Am I now? No, not at all. But we continue to grow, and we continue to be called to, just as my parents took care of me when I was little and fed me and clothed me. I know that many people today, myself included, had to care for my parents as they got older. May have had to help feed them and clothe them because they couldn't do it for themselves. And so we continue to honor our parents our whole lives. My dad used to say, and maybe your parents say the same thing, he used to say, live up to your name, Johnson. You represent the Johnsons out in life. And so by our behavior, or the things that we say, the things that we do in public, at school, at church, we're kind of representing our families. And so we want to honor our parents by the way we conduct ourselves. And so that when they see your last name or they hear your last name, they say they come from a good, loving family. And so it's not surprising that they are representing so well. And so I think we also honor our parents by our own behavior. This is the one command that has a promise. It says, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land God has given you. I think we need to be careful here. It doesn't mean that we will have a guaranteed long life to live 100 years. I don't think that's the point here. I think the point here is that we will live well. And the general pattern is that when you honor your parents, you will have a better, longer life because you're going to relate well to people. You're going to relate well to authority. And when you get along with other people, it's going to go much better in your family, at your workplace, at your church. Luther has a great quote about this. He says, if you have difficulty honoring your parents, you will have difficulty honoring your teachers. In other words, the disrespect, the attitude that you have at home, if you have it, I hope you don't, but if you have that disrespect and that bad attitude, you're going to carry that over into the school, and it's not going to go well for you. You're not going to live long, so to speak, in that context. There is a relationship between the first authority that we experience in life, our parents, and the rest of the authorities that we experience. But it goes on. If you have difficulty honoring your parents, you'll have difficulty honoring your teachers. And if you have difficulty honoring your teachers, You will have difficulty honoring your schoolmaster or your principal. And so it is that when we disrespect our teachers, we might find ourselves in a position where we are before the principal in trouble, and we have a choice. We can continue to have a bad attitude and disrespect, or we can honor them and honor the authority. Again, even if we don't agree, we don't have to agree with our teachers and our principals, those in authority, to respect them. We can simply put the best construction on things and realize that they may understand something that we're still learning. And that's kind of one of the burdens we have as young people when we are transitioning into adulthood, that we're still learning. And it can be tough, it can be challenging. But it goes on. If you have difficulty honoring the principal, you will have difficulty honoring the constable or the sheriff or the police officer. And so the stakes get higher and the authority gets higher. And here that attitude, that bad attitude, that disrespect is now carried over into society, and now you find yourself in front of the police officer. And if you have difficulty honoring the police officer, Luther says you'll have difficulty honoring the judge. And now the stakes are even higher. You're in front of the judge, and you can now tend to your bad attitude, change your disrespect into respect and honoring, or you could not. And the stakes are high. If you have difficulty honoring the judge, then you will have difficulty, Luther says, honoring the prison guard. And so that guard that stands outside of your cell now, are you going to respect them, or are you going to disrespect them? If you have difficulty honoring the prison guard, then you will have difficulty honoring the warden, the head of the prison. And if you have difficulty honoring the warden, you will have difficulty honoring, I should say her, because the warden in Chicago was a woman, or is a woman. If you have difficulty honoring the warden, you will have difficulty honoring the executioner. And so what Luther is doing is he's not trying to scare us straight by the story, or maybe he is, but he's trying to show us that as we go through life, the stakes get higher and higher and higher of authority, and the consequences become more and more serious. And so if we are respectful to our parents, we've learned to be that way, even when we don't understand, even when we don't agree, and we carry that into the school and into our workplace, into society, we will be a respectful, good citizen, and it will go well for us if we're that way. And I think that this is a hard lesson sometimes to learn. Sometimes we have a boss that's difficult to work with and to work for, but we still must honor her or him in our work, and we'll never get far if we're just difficult and have a bad attitude. But if we can learn to have a good attitude, even when we don't understand or agree, we might advance more quickly. We likely will. And then one day you will become the boss, or you'll become the authority. You'll become the parent or the teacher or the police officer or the warden, hopefully not the executioner. But you'll become somebody in authority, and you will want people to treat you with respect. So this is a commandment that I really like, and because I think it's true, that if you can learn to be respectful and honoring of your parents, it's going to go well for you. It's going to be good. And so what God wants from us is not obedience, darn it. What he wants is he wants us to grow in our love for him, and that our obedience, our respect, our honoring flows out of the great love that we have received.